Are we ready? Are you a morning person? When the alarm goes off, are you the one that jump out of bed? Or are you the sort of person who wants a bit longer? Are we ready? If I lie in bed in the morning a bit longer than usual, I'm thinking, there's things I should be doing. It's wasting the day. I like to be up and ready, which is interesting because Rosie's completely opposite. No secrets there, no. So are you ready? There are 28 days, I believe, left till the big day, Christmas Day. So are you ready? I know there'll be millions of people around the world who'll be buying presents and spending more money than they've got, sending cards and ordering food. Will they be ready? Will they be ready for Christmas? Many of us will forget something until the shops are shut and suddenly remember, we needed that. But as I say, we've entered the period of Advent. We're not big on Advent and liturgical calendars, David, in the Baptist Church. We're not really big on candles either. The first time we discussed lighting candles in church at the deacons' meeting, there was uproar. So it's not a big Baptist thing, so don't get led into thinking that we Baptists are normally lighting candles. We'll be doing a lot of it this year. But it's a time when we think about the approaching celebration of the birth of Jesus and get ready for that. A bit like Lent, although you don't hear people giving up chocolate and things during in Advent, do you? It's a time when we're supposed to concentrate, or Christians traditionally would concentrate and read and pray in order to prepare their hearts for the celebration that was to follow. And let's face it, whether we're Baptists or anything else, it can't hurt to spend a bit more time doing just that. But God called his people, and God calls us to be ready, awake, and ready to serve. You can warn your children sometimes, can't you? Those of us who are parents will know. You can tell your child, well, in a bit later we're going to do this. And then 10 minutes before, we're going to do this. And 5 minutes before, are you ready? And when it's time to go, you're not ready. And there's a big fuss and sometimes tears about the fact that they've got to do something that they were obviously not wanting to do. And I think that's like that's not unlike us, is it? Who certainly was not unlike the Israelites. God told them and warned them that they should keep the commandments and follow his way and not worship other gods. And he sent prophets, prophet after prophet after prophet, to tell the people that it was time to get ready and time to be ready and do something different and be right and obey God and follow what God had said. And they didn't like it. Prophets like Jeremiah spent his whole life trying to warn people of God's impending judgment. And even when the Babylonians were outside the wall of Jerusalem, they still didn't really want to believe what he was saying. God sent John the Baptist to warn people to get ready for the coming of Jesus. The Messiah is coming, repent, be ready. And then Jesus, in his turn, tried to prepare his disciples and his followers to be ready for what was about to happen in his life and what was about to happen in the future. Well, there are certain questions you ask sometimes, aren't there, where you don't really like the answer. And I suspect this is what happened in Matthew 24. Jesus was in Jerusalem and he made a comment about the temple and what was going to happen with the temple. And the disciples then began to question him about when it would happen and what would happen. And surprisingly, Jesus told them. And it's rather an X-rated chapter. We wouldn't want to read that with children present because of the things that Jesus foretells. But the most important thing is he reminds them that his second coming. Advent, we think about Jesus' first coming. Jesus taught them about and told them about his return. He said they would see the Son of Man returning. Now, I don't know whether it's true because I haven't had a chance to check it and count it for myself, but according to Google, which must be right, there are over 300 references to the second coming in the New Testament. So this is something we should take as gospel, take as being very important. Jesus said The Old Testament prophets foretold, and the New Testament repeats that Jesus will return. Jesus gives the example of Noah. He said, as in the days of Noah, as Tim told us last week, I think, people were warned. They saw this man building this strange boat. They took no notice. Were they ready? No. Are we ready for the Lord's return? In verse 42, in the chapter we read, verse 44, it says, "So you must also be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him." Verse 44 and verse 42 says, "Therefore keep watch." And I say, this is repeated in Peter, the letter to Peter. He says, "The end of all things is near. Therefore be alert and of sober mind, so that you may pray," and so on. He goes on. And then Jesus gives some examples and uses some pictures to try and emphasize the way in which it's important for us and people to be ready for meeting Jesus. There was a song in the 1970s. Perhaps you're too young to remember it, and you may not have even sung it at the time or heard it, but it said, "Life was filled with guns and war, and everyone got trampled on the floor. I wish we'd all been ready. Children died, the days grew cold. A piece of bread would buy a bag of gold. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. The sun has come, and you've been left behind." And these words of this song are based on the words of Jesus in the chapter that we read. He warns the disciples, there'll be two of you, or two people, and one will go and the other will be left. Then he uses the example of someone whose house is broken into. I hope none of us have had that experience. But he said, if you knew when the thief was coming, you'd stay and protect your house. So Jesus warns people to be ready. He calls his followers to be ready. And there was lots of examples in the New Testament of people who weren't. The parable of the rich farmer in Luke 12. He had a really, really good harvest, so he set himself up for life. Was he ready? Jesus said no, because that night he died. Jesus tells us not to worry about the earthly things, money, food and clothing. Our main concern should be to seek his kingdom, Luke 12:31. Seek his kingdom. The man who went to Jesus and said he wanted to follow him, but first could he go and bury his father? He wasn't ready. The people of the Gennesarenes, where Legion had those demons cast out of them, and they could see what had happened. Were they ready? No. They asked Jesus to leave. So, the question for us this Advent is how we will prepare our lives and prepare our hearts for the coming of Jesus. Yes, for the celebration of Christmas, but more importantly, for the coming of Jesus. When you're going anywhere, are you the sort of person that likes to be there in plenty of time, or the sort of person who likes to leave it to the very last moment? If I'm honest, I'm the sort of person who likes to be somewhere early. If we're going somewhere, I like to be at least, just a few minutes, 10 minutes there before anything starts. I like to know that I'm there and I ain't got to worry about getting there. And I have to tell you that my wife is rather different. If we're there 5 minutes before it starts, why are we here this early? But that's human nature, isn't it? We're all like that. And the problem is that no matter what we're like, it's easy to put things off. I've got a few days yet, I needn't do that. I didn't think about that until I'm older. The kids at school, I don't need to do my homework today. Dad, it's not due in till next week. This is human nature. Sorting out your pension, sorting out life insurance, getting the boiler serviced before the cold weather. Haven't you done that yet? Getting the roof fixed. Does this sound familiar? I think it's called procrastination. I love looking that up in the dictionary. It said the action of delaying or postponing something. Synonyms include dithering, delaying tactics, dilly-dallying, and shilly-shally, or kicking something down the road. This is human nature. But Jesus highlights several examples in this chapter that we read in Matthew of people who do just that. He calls somebody a wicked servant in verse 48, who decides it's been such a long time that the master's not coming back now. And he starts drinking and wasting his time. In the next chapter, we read of 5 wise and foolish maidens. We have the parable of the talents, where 3 servants are given things to do. We have the parable of the sheep and the goats, and all of them relate to how they are going to prepare for the return of Jesus, being faithful and doing what we've been called to do. There are some things that are too important to put off. I know I'm preaching, well, I hope I'm preaching to the converted here. Our relationship with God and our spiritual state is too important to put off. I wonder how many people in their youth have decided they needn't make a decision about religion. Now they can. That's the thing older people do. And I wonder how many of those have actually made that decision when they got older or had the opportunity. So, Advent. It's a time to remember the coming of Jesus. A time when we could think and should think about making ourselves ready for the moment when we stand before Jesus, because we will. Are we saved? Are we forgiven? Are there unconfessed sins? Have we backslidden and let things slide? Paul encourages us to wake up and realise that our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The clock says it's 5 to 12. Maybe it's even closer than that. And what does Paul say? He says we need to clothe ourselves with Christ. Perhaps this Advent, it's time to put things right and get ready for Jesus, to make sure you're right with God, to reconcile with others, and have that chance to tell people who do not yet know that it's time to put their life right with God. I'll finish with this. This sounds very sort of C.S. Lewis-ish, but I don't think it is. It says, there's a fable which tells of 3 apprentice devils who were coming to earth to finish their apprenticeship. They were talking to Satan, the chief of the devils, about their plans to tempt and ruin men. The first said, I will tell them there is no God. Satan said, that will not delude many, for they know there is a God. Interesting. The second said, I will tell men there is no hell. Satan answered, you will deceive no one that way. Men know even now that there is a hell for sin. The third said, I will tell them that there is no hurry. Go, Satan said, and you will ruin them by the 1,000. The most dangerous delusion is that there is plenty of time. The most dangerous day in a man's life is when he learns that there's such a word as tomorrow. There are things which must not be put off, for no one knows if for him tomorrow will ever come. Quite a sombre end there, but it is a warning to us all. We've got 28 days to prepare ourselves for Christmas, wrap those presents, get those things done, order the food, but more importantly, we've got 28 days when we could focus on God. Right, we're now going to make some paper chains.